How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today people are over and leaving Denver. And we're here to talk about it, starting right now. Alright, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everson. Listen, if you're interested in looking into moving to Denver, the Front Range, Colorado, this is the channel for you, so make sure you click on that subscribe button. Also know that as much as I try to be a little informative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the state's most talented realtors, and we love helping people move here, and we're doing so each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, know that I am always the person, answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails, there, when and if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is the fact that people are over and leaving Denver. So today I just wanted to have a real conversation. I spend a lot of my time on this channel talking about different locations, different suburbs, places you might like to live, yada yada yada. And while that is important, and while I think that there are still a lot of people who want to and love moving to and living in Denver, there is also some negative things that are occurring here, and that is driving more and more people away from Denver, away from the metro. And why? Why are they over it? Now, we're going to talk about some things that are like no duh. I'm sure you could watch anybody's videos and Google real quick and it would tell you. And then we'll dive into some of the things that locals talk about, some of the things that have grown in frustration. So, obviously, getting off to our start, let's talk about the things that cause the most rift. And certainly affordability and cost of living is going to be number one on that list. Denver has increased in its affordability drastically, really starting since around 2009, 2010, and then in the early 2010s that just, got hit with some steroids and skyrocketed. Currently the median home price in Denver as of the making of this video sat a little over $598,000. That ranks the 7th most expensive for metro cities in the nation. One of the reasons I always say one of the reasons that I moved back to Denver from New York City at the time, this is back in 2008, so I'm going to age myself a little bit, was because I said I didn't want to pay $500,000 for a house. Clearly that worked out well. And we've seen rent prices, although they have leveled off to some extent during the pandemic and year after, we saw rent increases go up to 22% year over year. So from a housing affordability standpoint, you saw people get squeezed. And now, inflation hit everywhere. The cost of goods, grew. But affordability didn't just hit people in the Denver metro area in regard to housing. Our restaurants got more expensive, our outings, our nightclubs, all of these things. So that stress you have on your pocketbook has been exacerbated in Denver over the past decade plus. Now, with the large increase in population that Denver saw, we also saw an increase in crime. And this really started to hit headlines and really catch everybody's attention during the pandemic. Again, going into 2020, 2021, I really feel, as a native, that is when things started to turn. I think people started to notice around 17, 18, 19, we don't really like where Denver's going, and then the pandemic just threw some gasoline on it. During the past decade, crime rates in Denver increased by roughly 52% metro area. Granted, we have seen improvement in crime in Denver, but it was still a very dramatic increase. One of the biggest was in auto crimes, auto thefts. We were at one point the number one per capita city for car thefts. Kind of one of those situations where I didn't know anybody impacted, but I'm sure if I asked enough people, I could have talked to plenty of people who were. And so Denver went from one of these places over again the last decade plus that was considered affordable, that was considered safe, that was considered kind of, this quiet little cow town, as I like to call it, to a city with a lot of people that's very expensive and dangerous. And again, as your population grows, we talk about obviously the affordability, we talk about crime, we talk about traffic. Traffic increased in Denver. And again, I'm not saying anything that people couldn't easily Google. You're going to see traffic in Denver, frustrating. Is it horrific? No. But if you have only lived in Denver, if you have been used to traffic being pretty reasonable for the majority of your time here, especially if you're, I'm 46, I'll age myself. If you're older than me or right around my age, you are probably used to a time in Denver where outside of rush hour in specific parts of town, you get anywhere very quickly, and now traffic is pretty congested throughout the day. that weighs on people who have lived here for a long period of time. And not just natives, just people who have seen that growth in Denver and specifically have not experienced other cities where maybe that traffic was worse. Now, getting into some of the things that we talk a lot about in this local community, let's talk about the environmental concerns and primarily our air quality. Hear my voice, I'm all raspy today. It's not because of the air quality. Starting around 2018, 2019, really, you started to see more smog in Denver. And I recall as I started making this channel specifically at the tail end of 2020, this did not have anything to do with the pandemic, that's just when I started my channel. I remember driving out in the morning to fly my drone in different areas and at the time realizing, man, you really don't have a good view of downtown today. Or you really can't see the mountains that well because of the smog or because of the smoke. Now, during that period of time, there were some pretty significant fires causing that issue. And I'll tell you this, if we have a fire in California, if we have a fire in Canada, it gets smoky here. But Denver has a routinely poor air quality level day by day, and it is impacting people, it is frustrating people, and it is making them consider moving elsewhere. Getting to my favorite topic, because I'll get the most comments and the most hate for it, but we have political riff in Colorado. Now, I choose sides privately, but publicly I'm just going to tell you, Denver has had some struggles in this area. The political climate here, Colorado has certainly shifted to a blue state. No hiding that. We were red for a while when I was a younger kid, became purple, now a bit blue. Now, the things that people are going to point to politically and primarily. One, the homeless situation. Downtown Denver and spreading now, that homeless issue is a growing challenge. I think it was definitely at its worst during the pandemic. A lot of cities can equate to that. It has more recently become challenging with the amount of migrants that we have gotten, many of them from Venezuela, and my wife and her family are Venezuelans. This is a very difficult situation, not the migrants, but I digress. But knowing that this has placed a lot of pressure on the city, and you have people who kind of have different thoughts on it, right? You have people that want to have open arms and take care of people. You have people who are like, no, hell no, they don't belong here, get rid of them. And then I think most of us who are in between who are like, how do we help these people while not harming ourselves? And sometimes there are no answers. That political pressure has been just a lot and kind of insurmountable. There are a lot of people, again, I'll get comments guaranteed where people say, don't move to Denver, to this, to that. And then I also have people who reach out to me and they want to move to Denver for those very same reasons. In addition to homeless, you also have to talk about gentrification. And we can't really talk about the Denver housing market without facing the fact that gentrification has been a big ticket issue here in Denver. That there are communities long known maybe for being, having minority populations or having, maybe some low income housing or you name it, that has since been just wiped and rebuilt and new construction and luxury homes and high-end apartments. And it has pushed a lot of people out of these neighborhoods who may very well not have anywhere else to go. And so some of these communities, and I would tell you, 5 Points in Denver, many people will call it Rhino now, but locals will call it 5 Points. Areas in Commerce City, areas in Globeville. These are areas where that gentrification conversation has been serious. One of my absolute favorite neighborhoods in all of Denver, the Highlands, has, again, conversations that people have, especially long-standing locals who remember what these neighborhoods are. Now, listen, there is the conversation of progress. There is the conversation of, improving a community, and then, gentrification has its own place. And that's going to be, again, a conversation that people have, but that has been a huge political element in Denver, and it has exhausted some folks here that just don't want to deal with it, or just flat out don't agree with it and don't want to be a part of it. And I know some of you are watching this right around the holidays, and you're like, ooh, man, Jimmy's just giving me the warm fuzzies. He's just so fun the last couple videos. Not necessarily, a partisan or bipartisan political issue, but infrastructure, a big challenge here in Denver for a number of reasons. One, whether it's roads, whether it's bridges, Water rights. Water is going to be an issue here in Denver. So, Denver is, again, a growing city. When you look at population-wise, it doesn't seem that big. That's because the city itself isn't very big, and then your suburbs take up a lot of that. When you include those suburbs in your population, you're into the multiple millions. So that infrastructure challenge is tricky. We talk about highways, for instance. I-25, which runs right along downtown Denver, there's no way, realistically, to widen that highway to get us another lane. They've done some lane expansions on I-70 running east to west, but nothing on I-25. So as the population grows, as new developments come in, very difficult to handle that traffic in that situation. You have a lot on the service roads. You're going to see the same thing when it comes to certain electrical grids. You're seeing, again, same thing with water. So infrastructure has been a challenge. It's placed higher costs on a lot of people who live here. When we talk about affordability, you can also look at things like insurance going up. You can look at property taxes, huge political issue there. Property taxes going up, all putting pressure on the local community. And a few other issues that are pushing people to decide that Denver is no longer the city for them. Big one, job saturation. So Denver's economy is in a great place. I would rival it to just about anywhere. It's diverse. We rely on a lot of different industries. We're not just, leaning on an oil and gas or a tech. We have a lot of different industries, but high-paying jobs are in high demand, and it can be tough to secure a job that equates to our high cost of living. So that job saturation has been a huge pain point for people. And two things that I found interesting as I had conversations with friends, clients, people who are considering moving to other places were, one, the desire for more space, whether that was on their property or just in general, just being able to go on a hike and not be surrounded by so many people. And there was a time where you could go on hikes in the Front Range and you might see a few people, but you weren't flooded on the trail, and that's not really the case anymore. So the idea of just more space, little just looser, again, not just on your property, but in general, and that tied right into quality of life. And I think that people have talked about, especially not just locals and natives, but people who have lived here for a long period of time and who have kind of witnessed this change. They want to go back to the days of a slower Denver. And listen, we know that's not going to happen. Denver it continues to grow. There's a lot of momentum for it to grow further. This is mainly a video talking about people who have been here for a while who are thinking about, maybe it's been long enough. But that quality of life from feeling as though the Denver metro and Colorado that they have lived in is not the same anymore. And that really does lead us to my final point, and one of the biggest, and that is that locals, and especially natives, they have not liked the progress, if you will, of the Denver metro area. In fact, many of them don't see it as progress. And listen, I think that is always going to be the case. I think as things change, there are people who lean in and appreciate that change, and then there are those that don't. And a lot of us are going to have in-betweens, right? A lot of us are going to enjoy the fact that there is a lot more to do in Denver than there was in the 80s and 90s. A lot more restaurants, a lot more clubs, restaurants. We've got all the sports teams, all of these things. The trade-off has been, again, everything's more expensive. It's tougher to get around. There's more people everywhere. I think that you have a lot of natives who, and again, I don't just say natives. Colorado loves its natives. We got our bumper stickers. It's so important that you're a native. And I'm a native, so I can say this. I don't really care. But locals as well. People who have lived here for a long time. Many of you can relate to this. You ever been driving around with your parents and they start mentioning, like when you were a kid, driving around with your parents and they would mention like a big shopping mall and they would say, I remember when that was an open field and there was nothing there. That's where we used to go play stickball as kids. And now you have witnessed that in your lifetime. You have seen the open fields become the strip mall. You've seen it become a neighborhood. Well, Colorado saw that just at a crazy amount, where you had massive amounts of open space that are being filled in on a daily basis in growth. And there are those who are excited by it, and then there are those that are just exhausted and over it. So with that, you have a lot of people who are looking at first moving farther outside of the Denver metro area. You're going to see a lot of people, as they move away, they're looking to areas north. They're looking at areas like Loveland, Longmont, Fort Collins, Windsor. Heading south, they're looking to areas like Monument, maybe as close as Castle Rock, but really getting farther down near Colorado Springs. And then if being even still in Colorado isn't in the cards for him, at that point looking to other states. And that pressure continues. So while you have a great demand for people moving to Denver, there are certainly those who would say that they are over Denver and thinking about leaving. And it's an interesting conversation and how those dynamics may or may not change. Where will affordability go? Where will the political climate in Denver shift? Will we get our fresh air back someday? And will you be able to go on a hike without listening to 17 dudes carrying a boombox playing annoying music? Not that that really happens that much, but occasionally, and they'll tell you they're scaring off bears. But that is a perfect opportunity for us to have a conversation about all the things that are wonderful and not so wonderful about Denver. That's why you have my number and email on the screen. Know that I'm always the person to answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails there when and if you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everts. That was People Are Over and Leaving Denver. Until I see you next time, peace.